Welcome to Fatherhood Field Notes podcast, where I interview truly incredible fathers, gaining wisdom from their stories for you and I to grow in our craft. I'm your guide, Ned Shaw, father to 5 kiddos, currently ages 12 to 19, and husband to my rad wife, Sarah, working on our 21st year of marriage. So yep, I am in the thick of it, and I'm working daily to rebel against the low expectations for fathers and create a world where fathers know who they are as they show up for their families. You and I have the greatest opportunity to impact our world through the way we embrace our fatherhood role. This episode is brought to you by the Adventure of Fatherhood, helping men discover their powerful fatherhood role and build their fatherhood skills. The role of the father is to serve, guide, steward, protect, and of course, find joy and have fun in the messiness of it all. Today's guest is my friend, Dylan Nonaka, leader in the community, leader in his business, jiu-jitsu coach, a man who loves his wife, and is highly intentional with his sons. Enjoy meeting my friend, Dylan. All right, my friend, Dylan, welcome to Fatherhood Field Notes. How you feeling today?
Awesome, man. Thank you for having me.
Dude, yes, thank you for joining. I've wanted to have a podcast fatherhood conversation with you for a while, as I have attended, your Jiu-Jitsu Academy off and on the past year or so, and seeing your interaction with youth, seeing your interaction with your own son. So it's fun that we finally got to sit down and do this. So my first question right out the gate is, how old do you find yourself today?
How old do I find myself? I always tell people I'm in my prime.
So if I asked you in 10 years, you think you're going to have the same answer?
I think so. I feel like the 40 to 50-year-old time frame is definitely a prime time in my life anyways. I mean, I did a lot of growing and maturing really up until I was probably like in my late 30s, and I feel like I finally got a lot of stuff figured out, and physically, I feel good. I'm blessed that I've taken pretty good care of myself, but I haven't also abused myself. So I'm in pretty good physical shape, and I feel like I'm in better shape today than I was in my 30s for sure. So I feel good, man.
How are you in better shape today than you were in your 30s?
So, my history was I went into the Marine Corps right out of high school, and so I was in really great shape, obviously. And then that ended in the early 2000s. And then I went to college. I got married, we had kids, and I was just kind of doing life and working, and I wasn't taking great, I never got super sloppy or anything, but I just wasn't taking great care of myself, and it wasn't like an intentional regimen. And about 10 years ago or so, I kind of got serious, and really actually, not even 10 years ago, like around COVID is when I really just focused in and said, I'm going to make, health a better focus. I heard something somewhere about, it's not about lifespan, it's about health span, right? Like, why live to your 90 if the last 20 years of your life, you can barely walk and you're super unhealthy and stuff. And so, that really impacted me. And so, yeah, I mean, I just gotta, I try and eat decently. I do like to eat and have the occasional beer. So I counteract that with just lots of physical activity, like at jiu-jitsu, 3 or 4 days a week, and then definitely like a morning workout pretty much 7 days a week. So,
oh, nice. Okay. So like my little hack lately is, non-alcoholic beer is on the rise, and I would have talked trash on you. I didn't actually drink till I was 30, actually. And then, I like a beer or whatever, but dude, these athletic beers, I had one last night because I could have one and I'm not tired after. I still have all this energy to go do whatever, because usually a beer kind of zaps me. And they're like 25 calories. So yeah, who knows if they're good for you, but probably better than...
Scratches the itch.
Yeah, exactly. A little lime, suck that baby down. Dylan, how many years you been married?
I've been married now for, 2007 it was I got married. So I'm like 18 years. I mean, almost 20 years. Yeah.
Almost 20 years.
Yeah.
Let's go, dude. That's amazing. It's not every day that marriage is tough. So if somebody's listening to this, they've been married 10 years, what would you say to them as dude, here's my advice, my encouragement to you to make it to that 20-year mark?
I think just 100% partnership. People talk about 50-50, and I think that's the wrong mindset. I was just blessed, man. Like when, I just think my wife is, I always joke that she's super lucky because she married somebody who had no idea what they were doing in life, and things turned out pretty good, and it's and I think that's a thing that's really hard to predict, early in life, especially when you're in your 20s and you have different motivators. Is picking a lifelong partner is a super hard thing to do. And that's probably why so many marriages end up in divorce. But definitely, from day one of the there was basically like two characteristics I saw in my wife that made me stick around. Is one, I knew right off the bat she would be a great mom. Like, you know how you can just tell with women sometimes? And for me, having children was super important. And having an amazing mom which I had, was something that to me was a characteristic that was going to be like a showstopper, right? I was looking for that. And I could talk about 100 different ways that manifests. But and then the other one was just like dedication to shared goals, and even when we were really young, we had dedication to shared goals together. And to this day, I've done tons of crazy stuff like in business and in life, and she's never second guessed me. She's always been supportive. She's like, it's never been, and that's a really hard thing I come in contact with in my business world today, is like so many great people don't have supportive spouses, and it really holds their potential back, because they go home to a place where they're being questioned, or there's negative energy, and I've never had that. So no matter where we've been and how things have evolved in the last 20 years, I mean, she's always been all in, all the way to the point where, like, 4 years ago, she gave up her 16-year career teaching to come help me in the business, and has like skyrocketed the business since she did that. Because I needed some, I guess married people can't work together, but like we work together really well, and she manages me. Like I'm humble enough to know that I need management, I need direction. I'm a big picture vision guy. I need an implementer who will make sure that I'm not overstepping and jumping off the cliff before the plane is built, and that, that's my nature. So that's been a really fun era, is really since COVID. She stepped away from teaching and has been helping us full time. And so we work together on a full-time basis, not in the same place. She loves to stay at home and not leave the house. So she leaves at home, I come to my office, but that's been a really fun evolution the last few years.
Yeah, that's awesome. It is rare, but it really shouldn't be, right? I mean, I think you look at like 50 years ago or 100 years ago, there was really this like the whole family would kind of work together towards something. And I don't know that this idea of do what makes you happy, if anybody's happier than they were 100 years ago. I think doing life with your family is really the way to be happy, right? Is like we don't want to be in these silos.
And we spend so much time, quote unquote, working, right? In like this, our professional era of our life. And it's like, why do that separately? Like you live separate lives. I mean, it's, I think about that. Like if you can make it work.
Out on that. Yeah. Cause like most people give 40 hours of their best week time, right? So like their very best energy, awake, ready to go. And they're giving it to like these companies and other people. And obviously you can work in a really good place. Like I would say, like our team is super unique and tight knit, and we start with a daily huddle, and everybody has very similar values. So there is something unique about that. But again, like my oldest daughter, she's 19, she's at college, but she works for my company. So now like I selfishly get to see her on our weekly meetings, and it's a way for us to stay connected, because she's got to work somewhere. And that was the thing. We hadn't even planned this, but she's in college in Idaho, and minimum wage was like $7.50, and she's coming from Hawaii where she's making $19 an hour at a coffee shop. So I'm like, dude, for $7.50, you come, I'll find something for you to do. Obviously I pay her more than that, but that idea I love. So Dylan, how many kiddos do you guys have, and what's the age span?
I have two sons, 14 and 16. So prime time boy dad mode right now.
14 and 16. And are they friends?
They are. They're really good friends. They're close. I mean, they argue and banter like all boys will, but yeah, they're super tight, and it's super cool now because the older one has a license, so they go to the beach together on their own, and he takes them around to his practices and stuff. And so seeing that next level of a relationship develop is super cool.
I'm just going to straight jump to this question so we don't get caught up and I miss it. But okay, so 14 and 16, you went into the military, obviously very disciplined, and that is a route. When your boys are, let's say, 18 to 20, what do you really want them to know? And I'm asking this because like I'm in this, so I got 4 girls, but I have a son, he's 15, and I'm really starting to see like, oh my God, I've got 2 years left with him here in the house. And so what is it that I want to impart to him? Obviously, the way that I live, he's watching, right? And that's really critical. But I can be intentional with some other things as well. So for you, what are things that you're thinking about as the writing is on the wall or the future of them moving out is coming?
Well, one, that they can do anything they want in life. They put their mind to it. I mean, that's a big one that I was raised with and has benefited me greatly in life. And so I make sure they understand that I don't have any expectation of what they do, but whatever they do, they need to do it at a high level, and they need to do their best at it. And that's so far been they've done that in their lives, which I'm super proud of. I mean, they've done different things in their lives, but I use my older son as an example that, I always talk about, like, to win in life, like, if you just show up and work hard, like, you have to have zero natural talent. You can have zero education. Like, you don't need anything. But if you just show up and you work hard, you're coachable, like, you can win pretty much at anything in this world. And he started playing basketball like 6 months before he started his freshman year, and was terrible. Like, was never played basketball before, just kind of found it through his friends. And this year will probably be the team captain and the leading scorer on the island potentially. I mean, he was in the top 4 last season, and it's purely a testament to showing up and working hard. Like, I was never like a gifted athlete or anything like that, and he just never misses a practice. We got a hoop. We got a hoop outside that he shoots on all the time, and just got better and proved to himself that you can really achieve anything at a high level if you just work hard. And that's really just all I want to see them do. I mean, is go out there and then positively impact the world. And that's something that I try and live, just set the example to show them that your personal success doesn't have to end with you. It can definitely impact many other people. And they see that through our business and our real estate agents and all of their uncles and aunties that they know. They all become a family in business, right? And they see that. And I just hope they can translate that into whatever path that they choose.
Yeah. Okay. So I want to tell you what I heard and then ask a question. You don't have expectations as far as what they do, which is cool. But you do have an expectation that whatever they do, they play at a high level. They give it their all, right?
Yeah.
You also said coachable, which I think is really important, right? There's a humility in being coachable. So when I think about the little time that I've spent in jiu-jitsu, very little, but I had my ass handed to me by you several times, and your younger son, right? Your 14-year-old.
Mason. Yep.
Yeah, Mason. Yeah.
He's an animal.
Yeah, bro, to say the least. But I'll say something. So here's a question I have for you. And because I'm assuming it's something that you have learned and that you're passing on to them in this, like, because the way you shared this just now, like, play at a high level and stuff, it doesn't, as far as me getting my ass handed to me by you guys, it's not this aggro. Because see, like, sometimes I feel like, let me give you an example. If I'm going to chop down a tree, I'm just going to chop the shit out of it with an axe. I don't care if it's sharpened or not. I'm just going to whack at it for 4 hours. But then there's other guys who are going to sharpen their axe for 3 hours and then chop it down in an hour. Okay. I would love to be the guy who sharpens the dang axe. I'm working on it. But in my time with you and Mason, there's a piece, or there's like, I don't know what the word is. You go slow, I guess I would say. You move slow. And I don't know if that was, you learned that from jiu-jitsu or something else, but that's really looking at something as a craft and honing a skill. So talk to me a little bit about how you learned that, and then how you've given that same gift to your kids. Because I've at least seen it in Mason when he's just smiling and slowly putting me into something that he just is hilarious to him. But, there's maybe a little pride there, but he's 14, right? So anyways, you get my question, because I think this is important for dads to understand.
So there's a concept in the military when we're like doing urban combat, when you're like entering a room with multiple people, and it's called slow is smooth and smooth is fast. So that was a foundational thing that stuck with me through that experience. But I've tried to impose that on like everything else I do in life, is do it slowly until you can get it done smoothly, and then it becomes fast. So a lot of times we start with like, let's get it done as quickly as we possibly can, like you said, and you don't sharpen the axe, and then it takes you longer and way more effort than it needed to. I also feel like when you see a true master in anything, they make it look easy, even though it's not, right? And so no matter how good you are at something, if you can't make it look easy, you're really not that good at it. And I apply that also to the business world too. Is like, people always ask me like, how do you do it? How as much as you do during the day and like not get frazzled and not get stressed out. And it's just years of being slow at it, and you're getting smooth at it, and then it feels fast and you get a lot more done than everybody else does. So I think that's it. But I don't know how like intentional that is. I mean, especially now that you bring it up, like, I don't know if I've had this discussion with Mason about it, but it could be just a learn by example thing, right? He sees me do it. He sees his other coaches do it, and it becomes a thing. But we do talk about that with them too, though, is like take your time and make sure everything is correct, because then you don't have to do it twice. And I think that's a good concept to learn, especially as a young man. Like we like to just charge. And I have that in me. But believe me, I have that in me big time. It's taken a long time to bottle that up and channel it in the right direction.
Yeah, but I think it's cool for us dads to go, whoever we are, right? So like Dylan said, I don't know if I've really said that to my kids, but whoever we are gets transferred to our kids. So I think it's really important as dads, like, obviously, if you're listening to this podcast, you are working on yourself. So if you are growing and transforming, you almost don't even need to say it to your kids sometimes. It's going to get transferred to them because it's who you are, right? Okay, you guys obviously live in Hawaii, families here in Hawaii. You've alluded to it, but what is it that you do for a living to provide for the family and then provide value out in the world?
I'm a real estate broker.
And where could people obviously you've done really well, right? You're at Kona Broker on Instagram, right?
Yep.
You guys are crushing it here. You've had massive growth. Yeah, talk to me about that for a minute.
It's funny how life works out. My mom actually, right kind of when I was graduating high school, got into real estate. And so after I got out of the Marine Corps, I was going to college and she thought it would be fun. She was going to get her broker's license and then you can go to the same class to get your salesperson license. So she thought that would be fun over the summer for me to go to school with her. So she kind of forced me to get my real estate license when I was in college. And I did it part-time, kind of helping her out on the east side of the island. I was at UH Hilo. Then decided there's other things I wanted to do in life. So I pursued basically, I worked in Hawaii politics for like 10 years trying to change the world, which didn't work out super good. I was reevaluating this is 2014. I had subsequently joined the Army Reserve and I went away for like a 5-month school. So my kids were young and I was in Missouri in the freezing cold and I was reevaluating what to do in life because I was not home a lot. I wasn't making a lot of money. I wasn't seeing the kind of results I felt like was worth the effort that I was putting in. And I was just thinking, what am I going to do in life? And actually read The 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss. And there's all kinds of different stuff in there. But and you actually alluded to this earlier, a super impactful line in that book was that the greatest American fallacy and the worst thing we teach our kids is that do what you love and you'll never work a day in your life, right? We tell people this and then they chase unhappiness their whole entire life because most of the time the things that bring us happiness and joy do not bring us income. We're not going to be a professional sports player or, cook or, like a lot of the things that we like to do, spending time with our family doesn't pay us in most cases. So if you can find something professionally that provides you the time and resources to do the things that you love, you will become passionate about that thing. And so I read this and I come home. So this is a month or two later, I come home after this school and I'm thinking I'm just going to take 30 days off. I'm going to reevaluate life, figure out what I'm going to do. I go to lunch with my mom one day because I hadn't seen her in like 5 months. And she was kind of getting towards the end and maybe thinking about retirement. She's like, hey, you ever think about doing real estate again? And I was like, nah, I don't think that's really my thing. And she said, okay, cool. And we kind of just went on with the conversation. And then I come home that night and I'm like sitting on the couch with my wife and she was like, hey, you think about doing real estate again? And I'm like, wait, did you talk to my mom? And she was like, no. And I know when God's talking to you, right? And so I was like, you know what? I'll just do the classes to reactivate my license because I got nothing to do. I don't have any plans right now, and that'll be an option. And so I did that. And in year one, saw I was lucky. I came into the business. My mom had been there. She had married a broker from a local brokerage here. And so I had great mentors in my mom and my stepdad and learned pretty quickly and saw a level of success in the first year that I just recognized as like, this is something that I can definitely do to provide for the light went on, right? The Tim Ferriss thing, do it, provide for your family and have time and resources to do the things that you love. And so I just dedicated myself to it. I showed up every day. That was almost 10 years ago, 9 years ago now. And I've subsequently, we've built the number one team in the state. We sold 895 properties last year, 420 million in volume. And we're actually number 3 in units in the entire company out of a 90,000 person company. And so it's wild that in this little tiny market in Hawaii, we're up against people in San Francisco and LA and Dallas and these huge markets that are doing 10 times more transactions than we are. So that's just the result of dedication and hard work and positive intentions. And I absolutely love the outcomes. I just came back from a week of snowboarding with my kids. The goal, people ask, what is your why? Right. And the goal now is and I do intentionally tell my kids this is because they see this, amongst their peer group is I make sure they're grateful that money is never a restriction on providing them opportunity. If they want to go to this camp, or they want to travel to go to this jiu-jitsu tournament, or travel to go to this basketball clinic or whatever, like, we're going to decide whether or not we should, but it's like, finances are never a reason why we can't, right? And understand that is not a opportunity that many kids, I didn't have growing up, for sure. And so, but that motivates me to get up and do this job and work hard every single day.
Yeah. Okay, I got 2 questions from that.
Yeah.
My first question is, and we'll stick on the kid one, how do you help your kids not become entitled? Because not that we don't still have our kids wanting things, right? You're not saying I'm just, buying my kid whatever he wants, but there aren't a lot of times my kids or your kids really have to be told, no, you can't go to this camp, or no, you can't do this thing, or whatever. So on one hand, it's like those no's could drive the kid to go shoot more hoops by himself, because he's like, I'm figuring this out on my own. So how do you help your kids not be entitled because of the blessing of the lifestyle that you have?
I make them work hard. I mean, we both physically, but also mentally, there's an expectation, like at school, like, the first thing is like, if you want the answer to always be yes, the first requirement is straight A's. Like, you have to get, that's mom's requirement, is you must get good grades, period. And so that's your job. That's what you need to do. Show up every day and do school at a high level. And then all of the other options become available. But, we also do we got a big yard that we have to work on all the time. We got a piece of property down south that we put work into all the time. Anytime an auntie and uncle, anybody needs assistance, they're signed up to go and do that. I just make sure they understand that it's like, none of this stuff is free. And I have a concept that they understand, right? It's like, it's never a tit for tat. It's never like you give me this and you give me that. It's you constantly deposit, and then once in a while when you need a withdrawal, there's always a withdrawal to be made, right? It's not like I give you one and you give me back one. It's like, you just keep putting in, and then when you need something, it's always going to be there. And that's kind of the concept that they understand, is like, just work hard, do the right thing, and then when you need something, the answer is going to be yes in most cases, as long as you're doing all the right things.
Yeah, love it. Okay, beautiful. All right, so the next question, and you kind of, it was cool because you ended the statement, or the kind of the talk about work with going snowboarding with your kids. But my question was going to be, a lot of us men, especially entrepreneur type, it's cool. Like you go, okay, I want to find something I could do that gives me the freedom to be with my family. But then because we are builders and creators, we go do this thing, sell insurance, sell houses, whatever. And then that becomes the identity, right? Like, we're 60 hours into that because there's all these wins and it feels good and we're seeing all this growth. So in the concept of the 4-hour work week and finding something that you could create freedom, how do you make sure that you're living free and not just continuing to like have no goalpost in the business, right? Just all out in that. So how do you kind of dance with that?
I've always had pretty clear parameters from the beginning. When I was an individual agent, I probably did more of this than I needed to, to work after hours and work on the weekends and stuff. But it's always been a priority for our family, between my wife and I, that like we spend at 4:00 on is like family time, and weekends are family time. And so I've really worked hard over the years to design a business that allows for that. And I think that's just a discipline that you got to have, is like, one, your clients got to know what the expectation is and when you're available and what you're going to do. And if there are needs in the business that require you during those hours, then you hire somebody to do that job for you and you don't do it yourself. And so that time discipline, I think, is huge. And I've never bought into the hustle culture of like working 80 hours a week. Like, I've always believed you could like work 6 solid hours during the day and produce at a super high level. And I think we've proven that. So I tell my new agents all the time, like, anybody who's telling you got to come into this business and work 60, 80 hours a week to have a high level of success, I think is just doing it wrong. They're just doing it inefficiently. They're not doing it slow and smooth and fast. And so, yeah, so I've personally never struggled with that.
Yeah. Okay. 2 questions with that. One is the 6 hour a day thing. Do you think that when you're going to get into something entrepreneur-like, or even any career really, at a certain point, you need to make a shift? Like, there was a season that you had to put in 50 hours a week to be able to get to the place of 6 hours.
Yep. Let me comment on that. I definitely had that season. I would say 20 and 21 was definitely that season for me where I would, but what I did was, that extra time came outside of the time that that was for my family.
Yeah, you're getting up early or whatever.
Get up early, stay up late, like, put the kids to bed at 8 or 8:30 and then go back to work till 11 or midnight. But I also think if you're focused about it and intentional about it, you don't have to do it for 10 years. Like, you can do it for a year, 18 months, and you can really build what you need to then sustain back to a normal cadence of 6 hours a day.
So then how do you make that shift though, right? Because it's exciting, right? Building something is exciting. So at a certain point, you said, okay, now did you have a goal? And as soon as I hit this goal, now I'm going to drop down? Because I think we can get addicted to the performance of it and sacrifice our families for it. So how did you shift from the get up early, stay up late to a little bit more healthy long-term?
Leveraging people. If I have a superpower, and this is something people struggle with, I mean, I coach to this all the time with folks, is just trusting other people to do the job for you. And definitely in the real estate space, but I think in most entrepreneurial spaces, people feel like they're the only one that can do that job. They're the only person who can service the client the way I can. They're the only one that can hold the open house the way that I do. And that's BS. Like, it's completely not true. And I've just really been intentional about trusting other people and giving them an opportunity. I learned definitely in the Marine Corps, but my first job out of college was working for the governor. I got an appointed position right out of college. Long story, I'm not going to talk about it. I was completely unqualified for it, but the governor at the time told me, she said, I believe in your potential, not your experience. And it hit me hard, right? It was like, so I had to live up to this expectation. And to this day, I always tell agents, I will always bank on your potential more than your experience. And if I don't think you have any potential, then that's a problem, right? But if you show me potential, like, I will be all in with you all day long and trust you with the moon and the stars. And so every time I gave away responsibility or gave away a client or gave away anything, it always ends up yielding more money and then gives me more time back. So it's like, but I think it's so hard to give up control sometimes. And so if there's one thing to take away from that is really practice trust in people. And then the second component that's absolutely necessary is unconditional love. We do this with our families. Most people understand what unconditional love is, but we don't do it in our businesses. And the first time somebody screws up, you cut them off, or you fire them, or you yell at them, or you break that relationship. And you got to have a little bit of grace. And I always, tell folks, like, hey, if you're solid 99 times and you screw up one time, like, I will forgive you that one time. I'll continue to love you, and you'll go on to the next 99 good things that you do. And building that culture in an organization, I think, really helps with this and has helped me be okay with handing off client responsibilities and marketing responsibilities. And I mean, you name it. I mean, like, I really try and focus on what are the things that really I need to be doing. And if there's somebody else that can do the 99 other things, I try and delegate those things. And it's, that's created scale and freedom for sure.
Yeah, dude, so good. All right, I'm gonna shift gears a little bit because I think we could rap about this forever. What would you describe the role of the father as?
A leader.
And what does that mean?
So my definition of leadership, a lot of this goes back to my military experience, or my description of a leader is somebody who will stand up and run towards gunfire, and the folks that he's tasked to lead will stand up and follow him without being told, right? That level of trust and confidence exists in that person. That was always the way we were taught in the Marine Corps, was like, you shouldn't have to order. Well, first of all, you do not order people towards the gunfire. You go first and they should follow you, right? Like, you lead by example, you lead from the front, first in, last out, that kind of mentality. And I've just tried to uphold that standard in fatherhood because it's probably the most important leadership position we're ever going to have. Like, who cares if you lead a huge company and, whatever it is, like, if you can't lead your family and lead your children to where you want them to go, then all of that stuff is totally irrelevant. So yeah, I mean, I could talk about leadership for days, but I mean, at the end of the day, I just want, and I want them to show, to become leaders. I think there's not enough leaders in the world. There's not enough people who want to step up and lead and take on responsibility. And the world is yearning for leadership. Right. I mean, people are dying for it. And
especially in your definition, right? Which your definition is like, not let me sit in my high and mighty chair and tell you go this way. It's I'm going and you trust me so much that you're following me. And it's not a blind trust that you're saying, it's a trust of consistency, right? And stability, because you've been so consistent. You've created so much stability that it's not like, I better follow this guy or otherwise I'm going to be, shamed. It's that this is just where he's going. And if this is where he's going, this is where I'm going. And yeah, dude, we are freaking hungry for that. And that's why, to me, fatherhood and the fatherhood podcast and stuff is so important because, like you said, it doesn't matter if you're running a big real estate agency or you're running this, that, or the other. Like, we all have an opportunity to be a leader in our homes. And that truly is what's going to change the world, if we want to use like this terminology, is if everybody were to lead their home, come back in 100 years, and things are going to look different than they do today.
Yep. Yep.
When did you embrace fatherhood? So you got 2 boys. I find that some dads, it's like the moment you hear, I'm pregnant, or it's the delivery, or it's the first time you rolled jiu-jitsu with your 1-year-old. Whatever it was for you, when did you go, oh my gosh, this really matters to me and it's important?
Man, probably before I became a dad. I mean, I think it was something that I always desired. And I didn't have the greatest relationship with my dad growing up. I mean, we had some disagreements and it was a divorced home. So I spent a lot of time with my mom growing up. But I had a lot of really good male influences in my life that kind of stood in or shaped kind of my worldview and my view of fathership. One, I just always wanted to have kids, but that I was really conscious about, like, I really wanted to be a good father for them when the time came, whenever that was. And I'm like, I guess I became that pretty young, like 26 or something like that. So I wasn't super young, but I mean, as soon as I possibly could, like literally my wife and I got married, and then like 11 months later, my son was born, right? Like, we didn't waste any time. So yeah, I don't think it was like, there was like a moment after they were born, but it's something that I feel like I was like preparing for years prior to. And, I'll be honest, like probably the first like 8 years, like, wasn't super fun for me, like changing diapers and like dealing with toddlers and like, like I was like, I got to get through this. But I was really looking forward to like the years we're in now. Like,
it was really formative.
When like
formative
8,
years,
10 came around, and we started doing T-ball and started going to jujitsu and like, started snowboarding and like, going surfing together and diving together. I mean, like, man, I mean, I can't even talk, how much joy I've had in the last, 5 or 6, 7 years in this era of fatherhood. But I understood that those first 10 years are necessary to get there. I mean, and I don't know if it ever ends, like, because it's always going to change, right? Like, I always think about, now looking back with my friends with younger kids, there's always these different eras where you have, now you're in this really formative era of them becoming men, but, soon they're going to be men and they're going to face challenges in their 20s, whether it's relationships or figuring out what to do in life. I mean, I know I was a lost 20-year-old. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do in life. There's that saying, right? Different levels, different devils. And I feel like it's just like at every level, there's going to be new challenges and a new role for me to take on for them. And luckily, I've gotten to walk that road before they did. And hopefully I have some good advice and guidance for them.
Yeah, that's good. What's something you've learned about yourself in being a dad? Whether it's the 2-year-old, the 7-year-old, the 12-year-old, what's something that has been revealing to you?
I'm imperfect and I'm flawed.
What do you mean by that?
They really make me a better man, because when I talk about setting the example and being a leader, when you don't have anybody to lead and you don't have anybody looking at you, it's easy to take the easy road and do the lazy thing and kind of slack off. And the consequences of that are greater to me now because I have them. And so, on a daily basis, I get up in the morning and it's like, I could sleep in today, but it's like, I tell my boys that they get up every morning and I'm going to do it because they know when they get up, dad's already done working out. I'm going to eat breakfast with them. And so having that accountability, it's like I don't know if they know they're holding me accountable, but I think they are. So it just exposes that on another level when you are aware of that level of accountability, if you have that standard to uphold for yourself.
Interesting. So I wonder so having your boys creates another level of accountability because you really see your role as you're responsible to be the leader. I mean, going back to our conversation about the leader, where I almost wonder, probably not the dads that are listening to this, but if some dads just still look at their wife and kids as more of a burden responsibility, not an opportunity responsibility. And how missed is that? Like, how unfortunate.
Yeah, that's a huge perspective, man. Like, I mean, and I see that all the time. I do a lot of business coaching, but I do a lot of life coaching too with the folks in our company. And yeah, one of the ladies on our team brought up the other morning, and she's in her 60s, and she's just so wise and such a good person. And she talked about how she's been really busy lately and distracted because she's been helping with her grandkids. and she was like frustrated about that. She's like, man, why I got to spend so much time helping my kids with my grandkids? And then it hit her, the perspective shift hit her, is because her kids are working really hard, building their life, trying to provide for their family, to make a living here, to keep the kids close to her. And she was like, I have peers that are watching their grandkids because their kids are strung out on drugs and there's no other place for the kids to be, or for the grandkids to be, right? And she was like, so I like had to slap myself and be like, stop negatively looking at this in a negative light. Like, this is an opportunity. One, I get to spend time with my grandkids, but it's an opportunity to help my children who are doing the right thing, right? That are doing their best. And so how many times do we have, like, when you talked about, like, when you look at your family as a burden rather than an asset and an opportunity? I mean, yeah, that's huge. And I think that's something to be conscious of every time that negative, because that negative devil lives on everybody's shoulder and whispers in your ear, and you have a choice whether to listen to him or not. So life happens to us, life happens for us, not to us, right?
Yeah, it's just all how you see it. You mentioned your dad earlier. I typically ask this question, just some brief, connection with father, but what's something you appreciated about your dad? And then what's something you wish your dad did differently?
Something I will always appreciate about my dad is he was always there. Like, he showed up every single day. He went to work every single day, not a lazy bone in his body. And that really set an example for me that, like, if you just show up every day, like, you just get up and you show up every day, like, you could be successful. But he didn't have a dad. His dad died when he was like 7. And so he didn't have the benefit of kind of learning, I think, from your dad directly, and was raised by his Japanese mom who it was a different generation, right, back then. And so there was a lot of things that, I also learned that I wanted to do differently, and I wanted to be different. But to this day, I mean, like, he's still very present. He's always been dedicated to the family. It's funny, like, his big thing is, like, he'll go to Safeway on Fridays, and whatever's on sale on Friday, he's like, buy a bunch of it and then bring it to my house so I can cook it for him, because he doesn't want to cook, But it's like little things like that, like the consistency of providing, like goes on to this day. And yeah, it's cool. It's cool to still have that time. A lot of people don't have that time, and I feel like I see my dad probably like in the 90 percentile of, like, more than most people do, because he still lives very close and is available and engaged with the family.
Yeah, that's cool. It's interesting. I was talking to a guy yesterday on a podcast, and it was kind of the first time I realized this. And I think it's kind of maybe a little bit of a last generation thing, but we were talking about the difference between your dad loving you and your dad having a relationship with you, that they're two different things. Like you kind of mentioned, like, dad was always there. And I'm not speaking to your and his relationship necessarily, but I think it's important for us to see, like, the way you are talking about your kids. Not only do you love them, but you have a relationship with them, right? You're rolling jiu-jitsu, you're going snowboarding, you're going surfing, where I think a lot of guys can be like, I love my family, I take care of them, but I went on my snowboard trip with my friends. I went on my surf trip with my friends, which is fine. I'm not saying don't do that, but, like, bro, I was just snowboarding with my kid in Colorado, I don't know, 6 weeks ago. We had the best freaking time together, and when I'm on the mountain with him, watching him go down the mountain in front of me, there's literally no other man on the planet that I would rather be doing that with than him.
I totally get it, man. Yeah.
But it's funny that sometimes we get caught up in this, like, FOMO of, like, oh, I can't wait till I can go do this thing. And then you're kind of going and doing this thing with other people who are important loosely, but not the same as your sons,
Yeah. Like, one of my favorite things to do in life, totally related to this, is my kids love to eat, right? I mean, they're teenage boys, but I love to eat good food too. So it's like I've always raised them to be very diverse in, like, what they eat, and, like, they never learned how to be picky. And so it's really cool. Like, we can go out to a nice restaurant and have dinner and, like, have, like, a 2-hour long conversation. Right. And, like, that's, like, those are the best. I mean, we did it the last night in Tahoe. We went to the steakhouse and we just had conversation. Our family had conversation for 2 hours. And it's like, I really value that, because I see other places where, like, kids are just looking at their phones and quiet and not engaged. And I get that from my friends a lot too. When they'll come over, we'll interact with my friends. They're like, man, your kids, like, they talk like adults, like, they have a conversation and they're inquisitive and they have opinions. And yeah, that's something I really, really value. It's just that, like, having a meal at Tashima's, just talking story.
Yeah, man. How would you say you've cultivated this? So say a dad right now is like, man, I haven't cultivated good relationship with my kid, in the sense of, like, being able to just have a conversation with them. Is there anything that you would tips, tricks that you would say, hey, here's how you could start to cultivate this?
A simple one is, and this is my wife's rule, is no cell phones at the table. We have twice a day. We meet at the kitchen table at 6:30 to 7 for breakfast every morning, and at night whenever we all get home from our activities. Now that's changed over time. When they were younger, it was more like 6 to 7, but that's always been a rule, and we have to talk, right? I mean, we spark conversation. I think being genuinely interested in what they're interested in is an important part, especially when they're young and you don't care about Pokemon or whatever they're into. Like, if you genuinely ask about those things and let them talk about it, it shows them how to be engaging and have a conversation. And then later on in life, it becomes cooler because now you get interested in the same things and they start talking about sports or politics or whatever is going on in life. And so I think that's it. I mean, a little simple hack is like that intentional practice a couple of times a day of like, we're going to interact with each other, whether you like it or not.
Yeah. And yes, so good. So I think sometimes it's just creating the space. So it's like if breakfast is 6:30 to 7 every day, there's not any distractions around.
TV's not on. Yeah. TV's not on. There's nothing else going on. Yeah.
And that's why I'm always like, I'll drive my kids wherever, because that's usually some of the best is windshield time.
That's been my wife's greatest challenge of my son having a license, is she doesn't have that time. Now, her favorite job was Uber driver, right? Taking him to school in the morning, picking him up, taking him to practice. And now she doesn't have that. So it's been an adjustment for her.
It's funny because you kind of dread it as a parent. Sometimes you're like, dude, I was in the car for 2 hours today, right? It's so much time in the car. But like, I'm seeing the writing on the wall right now. My twins, Brody and Presley, have their permits. And I'm like, oh man, this is going to be, I'm not going to get to take him to school anymore.
Yeah.
Pretty soon. So take him as much as I can now. Okay, dude, incredible. Love connecting with you. The podcast is Fatherhood Field Notes. You're really opening up your life, kind of sharing things with us. The mantra behind it is rebel and create. And the idea is, like, as men, we want to be warriors. We want to fight, rebel against something, but not just to be destructive, to like create something beautiful in its place. So when you hear rebel and create, what's something that Dylan is rebelling against, and then what do you hope to create in its place?
I've always, I mean, it's like not super politically correct in today's world, right? But I've always been rebelling against this notion that like of the modern family where like we're all equal and the fathers don't have a specific role to play. And that's probably another reason my wife and I get along so well, is she understands that too. Like, she's 100% okay being a mom and staying at home and making dinner and doing those things. And it's not like a subservient relationship, or it's not a second class citizen type thing, which is this weird thing that we're taught nowadays. And I just try and instill that in my kids too, is that like, we have respect for everybody. We're equal. Like, that's, that all that stuff makes sense, but you also have a role to play. You're a leader, you're the head of the household, and not just at home, but in life, in your community, in the organizations you're a part of. Anytime there's an opportunity to step up and be someone to provide value and direction, be that guy. And so I think that's just it is society was built on that for a very, very long time. And I think a lot of the problems in society have risen from this idea that even like kids are equal in a household. Like, that's not the case. Like, they need to be led, right? There needs to be a hierarchy. I mean that in the most respectful kind of way possible, but I think that's definitely a thing that I've never bought into, and I've just seen firsthand causes tons of chaos in a lot of families. Is this idea that there isn't a hierarchy and there isn't a structure to a family and a household.
Yeah, well, you answered the question felt very politically correct. So I think you're good there. It's funny how we want to dance around it. And so here's the interesting thing for me of dancing around this is like, I think that I have had shifts because like I have 4 daughters, and like I've always taught this, like, be successful, grow, blah, 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 blah. And I think to the detriment, some when they were middle school, I've come out of it now. But dude, being a mom is incredible. So dude, and we don't celebrate that enough. And I hate this, like, it's okay if you're just a mom. Like, that statement is ridiculous. And it reminded me, I've been wanting to order this quote for the wall in the house so my wife sees it and my daughter see it. But C.S. Lewis, I think, has this quote, something to the extent of the homemaker is the greatest career there is.
100%.
Every other career exists to support the ultimate career. Right. So like you and me, our career, it's like, who gives a crap how many trophies are on the wall from insurance or houses sold? It was so that our wife could like be the mother in the house. And man, so it's interesting because I've got daughters and I'm like, how do I help them see that and still pursue college and stuff if they want to, but also realize that the opportunity.
One of the stats that bothers me the most, right, is when they talk about the pay discrepancy, right? And like men and women aren't paid equally. And it's such a simplistic way to look at society where, yeah, of course, some women don't get paid the same because they were at home raising their kids for 15 years and not in the workforce, climbing the corporate ladder and getting educated and whatever it is. And it's like, that's not a bad thing. Like, that doesn't mean society is bad. It just means that there is different roles at different times. And I just think it's the context is not there. And it's one of those things that really teaches our kids some really terrible views about the world, that we're like this sexist, racist world or whatever. And it's like, that's not how it is. That's not why that exists. You got to look at the deeper causes and reasons for it. And I totally agree. I mean, to me, if every man's goal was for their wife to stay home and be super engaged and nurturing with their kids, the world would be a way better place. 100%.
And I just want everybody, I mean, every dude's nodding along, but somebody who's not. The other thing is
but that's the problem, is a lot of them don't, right? Like, they want 50-50. They want to do the minimum and then have their wife go to work for 40 hours a week too. And it's like, I got it. I'm not gonna, do you, but that's the problem, is if you look at it as 50-50 and now the resentment becomes involved and there's all of all this conflict and unhappiness. And so, yeah.
But you're also like, your wife is working, right? So you've created an opportunity for there to be an income stream there, or maybe some the boys are older now, so some purpose, if you will. And so I don't think that, like, what you're saying is like, dude, just stay in the kitchen. But you are also.
And here's the practical implementation. We talked about hacks earlier, right? And I have this conversation all the time with my friends. It's amazing to me, there's people that like have been together for 10 years, 15 years, and they have separate bank accounts.
That trips me out. That's kind of wild. Yeah.
So like from like really, like, even before we were married, like if you really, I think we want to have a healthy relationship, the finances have always been one and the same. Like, there's been one bank account that all the money goes into. Of course, we have savings accounts, stuff like that, but there's no like separate, you pay this thing and I pay that thing. There were times in our life, we were just talking about at dinner last night, where when I was in college, I went to college 4 years later than everybody else, because I went to the Marines first, and I met my wife, and she was just graduating from her teacher program. So she started teaching. And for the first 4 years of our relationship, like, she was the head of household from an income standpoint, right? She was making money. I was going to college, but we never viewed it that way. Like, it was always like, hey, this is what we live off of. This is, what we deal with. And to this day, so it's like, yeah, do the 1099s have my name on it? Sure. But doesn't mean that I made all the money. Like, and the kids understand that, right? Because some people, my wife's friends, think like she's like this maid woman that just stays at home and like, does her hair all day and stuff. And it's like, no, her contribution is 100% a result of my success. And so we have that mutual understanding,
And that's one of the hard things when you are a successful entrepreneur, is like, people don't see the work that was put into it prior, because they had quote unquote safer jobs, because they wanted consistency. And it's like, bro, let's see. In 2008, we had the twins. We had 4 kids under 4. I was starting my business. We were on so in California, Medi-Cal, so free insurance from the government. We were on WIC, which is like free milk, cheese, formula, all this stuff. Like, dude, we were broke. We were broke then. I had 3 jobs. I was a youth pastor. I was starting my insurance agency, and then whatever other shenanigans I was in. And you put your nose to the grindstone, you get the work done, and it's like, now we live in Hawaii in a rad house and this, that, and the other, right? So, but people don't see the work necessarily that went on in the middle.
And again, it's a 100% contribution from both sides.
From both sides. And that's the thing, is I wouldn't be here, right? If I want to use that terminology of, I wouldn't have been able to do this if it wasn't for having a 100% partner, right? Like, Sarah and I were just risk takers and faithful together. And I couldn't have done it without her, without a doubt, right? And she needs to know that. I don't know if I've always done a good job communicating that, but she does know that. The kids know that. So, dude, all right. Last question here. 2 last questions. What type of grandfather do you want to be?
A wise one. So if there's something that I look forward to equally in fatherhood, is grandfatherhood, because I personally never had any. I told you about my dad's dad dying. I met my mom's dad one time before he died, and I was so young I don't really even remember it. So that wasn't a relationship that I had, and I see my kids' relationship with their grandfathers. And it's something that I really, really look forward to.
Yeah. Yeah. That's cool. And I like wise one because I think like what I see when you said it is somebody who's available to share what he knows. Right. And I think that this idea of like, I'm going to retire and then just be gone. It's like, dude, these are your best prime time to like give back to those grandkids and even your own kids. All right. Last question, legacy question. So imagine, let's say about 25 years from now, your boys are about your age today. And you were standing out in the street, peering into their homes, seeing their life be played out. What would put a smile on your face, a tear in your eye to go like, oh, yes, I showed up. What are you seeing happening inside that home?
Oh, inside their home.
Their home. Yeah. Like they're a dad now. They're married now. They've got their career. They're where you are today.
I hope they're further along than where I am today. I hope they get to where I am 10 or 15 years earlier. But really, I mean, the thing that would make me the happiest, I think, is, and I get this today from my dad periodically, is someone will go up to him that he doesn't know and says, Dylan really changed my life. He helped me. He did this. He did that thing. Like he did something, and he'll get gratitude for something that I did, which...
That's perfect. I love that.
Yeah. And so, that's the thing that I look forward to, is just my boys impacting people in ways that they feel the need to tell me,
Yeah. Dylan, anything we missed? Any last thoughts that you would share with a dad before we wrap it up?
Just do your best. Work at it every single day. Be conscious about it. I mean, that's the hardest part, is that there's so much distraction in the world. And I think you got to, wake up every morning with a few intentions on what you want to accomplish. And probably the first one is to be the best dad you possibly can be. And then the other things will follow from that.
Dude, a word you use, which I just don't think that we're really aware, this is perfect, what we're aware of is, are you conscious? Like, are you conscious of the season you're in, of the gifts God has given you, of the blessings in your life? Are you stewarding it well? Are you taking responsibility of this wife, these kids? Conscious, like, are you conscious? Are you paying attention?
And are you grateful? That's a thing. And I don't know if you experience this with your peers, but I'm in the season now where I have a lot of friends that can't have kids. Right, like that have been trying for years, and they're like in their 40s, and they're like light is closing at the end of the tunnel. Like it's not something that they're trying in vitro and doing different things. Man, the emotional strain that puts on people is like something that we'll never have to endure. And I think that's a thing that don't take for granted. Your ability to have children and be grateful every single day.
Yes. Don't miss it, because it's not going to last forever.
Yeah.
Dylan, brother, thank you so much for taking time to talk fatherhood, sharing your life with us. Thank you for the work you continue to do on yourself so that you can love your boys well, love your spouse, and then be a light and a leader out in our community. I look forward to our paths continuing to cross in the future, my friend.
Absolutely. Thanks for doing this, man. I don't know if anybody else is, but super important work that you're doing. Appreciate you.
Okay, so here it is. Great conversation. Loved getting to know Dylan more, especially as it relates to fatherhood. I've seen him in situations really, just in jiu-jitsu, but to be able to connect with him at this level. And as I reflected on our conversation, I feel as though a conviction that I have right now is, we made this massive move to Hawaii 4 years ago, but the whole transition of really finding the place we wanted to live started about 5 years ago. And having 5 kids in this transition, my wife and I were so focused on like our kids finding friends and finding school and stuff that we put such a high emphasis on if our kids were content and happy and feeling good, that I think in some ways we have created a little bit of entitlement, which now that we're settled, we know where we are, we're stepping into this new season of like, okay, the kids are good, but not that they're a little too good. That's not the meaning, but let's start to create some other structures and pull back on some things, because in some ways there has been some entitlement created in trying to move and set them up for middle school and high school. So something that we are leaning into and working on now. My friends, if these conversations are impactful, I know that they are for me. Please write a review, help spread the word that fatherhood matters. It's a big deal. We can literally change the world as we step into fatherhood. Share it with a friend, shoot a text. Hey, dude, here's a great conversation around fatherhood. I thought you might enjoy it. It's a great way for us dads to encourage each other. I want to say thank you to all you dads out there listening to Fatherhood Field Notes podcast. What you do matters. Don't be like everybody else. Be yourself. That's who your kids, your spouse, and your community needs. This is your guide, Ned Shout. Together, let's rebel against the view that fatherhood has little impact, and let's create lives engaged in mastering the craft of fatherhood. I look forward to hanging out with you next time.